Like John Keats, William Wordsworth used the ode as a poetic form most suitable to expressing complicated feelings, complicated ideas. In fact, both Keats and Wordsworth used the ode really as a vehicle for moving back and forth between contrasting ideas that seem to have equal validity. Traditionally, the ode has been a song in praise of a person or an idea or a thing in some cases. And certainly Wordsworth, in his ode, Intimations of Immortality from Recollections of Early Childhood, certainly he is praising childhood in this particular ode, just as Keats praises, say, the Grecian urn or the nightingale or melancholy in three of his famous odes. The traditional ode goes all the way back to Pindar, a poet from ancient Greece. And he would write songs praising Olympic athletes. You can imagine how great that would be now if our poets would write songs in praise of our best athletes. It'd be fantastic. An ode to LeBron James, say. But this traditional ode, Pindarica, was composed of three parts: a strophe, which means turn, antistrophe, which means counter turn, and epode, which means stand. And that three-part structure was translated into English usually in the form of the strophe would have a set stanza form and meter form and rhyme form, and that might be repeated several times throughout the poem. And then the antistrophe would have a different stanzaic form and would often offer a thematic counter to the strophe. And then the epode, the third part, would be kind of a summary of these two ideas working together. So the point is that the ode in the hands of a Wordsworth, the ode in the hands of a Keats, and I should say in the hands of a Coleridge and a Shelley, thinking of Ode to the West Wind, use the ode to think about, again, contraries. How when one feels strongly about a particular state, particular virtue, particular person, oftentimes those strong feelings will generate conflicting feelings. And certainly Wordsworth's Intimations Ode, as I'm not going to call it, is exploring conflicting feelings. What are they? Well, the poem, on the one hand, seems to value childhood as the most important part of a person's life, and indeed the basis for a person's powers as an adult. But on the other hand, childhood is seen somewhat skeptically, suggesting that what we think we see in childhood, maybe we really don't, and also suggesting that even though children have the potentiality to enjoy more vitality and vision than adults, they don't even know that they have this vitality and vision. Therefore, these qualities are lost on them. This basic contradiction when it comes to childhood really leads the poem, I would say, to write itself into a kind of stasis more than once. More than once, we see the poet write himself into a position where it seems that he can't go any further. It's like he writes himself into silence. Let me give you some examples of this. Wordsworth began the poem in 1802, and he wrote the first four stanzas of the poem in 1802. And of course, the first four stanzas really explore this distinction between childhood and adulthood. He says, "When I was a child, everything was apparelled in celestial light." There's a sense that when he was a child, the world was bright, it was alive, and he felt like a full participant in this life. But as he aged, became an adult, he felt that he'd lost that ability to experience the world so vividly, and also did not feel unified with his environment anymore. He felt alienated from his environment. So he ends stanza 4 in this way: "Whither is fled the visionary gleam? Where is it now, the glory and the dream?" And there he stopped. And for 2 years, Wordsworth did not write on this poem, as far as we know. So these two questions stop him in his tracks. Where is it gone? Where's that gleam I had when I was a kid? And where's that glory? Where's that dream I had when I was a kid? So what does he do? 2 years later, he comes up with a myth that allows him to say, well, here is where the visionary gleam came from, and this is why I don't have the visionary gleam anymore. He lays out a myth that Plato is very fond of, transmigration of souls, you could call it, metempsychosis, some people call it, reincarnation, others. But basically he says there is a soul in each of us that had its birth in eternity, and it sunk down, as it were, into matter and entered our bodies at birth. So when we are young, we are closer to eternity. And what is eternity? A realm of perfect goodness, truth, and beauty. Therefore, when we are younger, we have access to this pure knowledge. But as we age, the years of our life take us further and further away from this knowledge we have as children. So this myth allows Wordsworth to say, oh, this is why when we're children we think everything is celestial, because we have fresh souls still within our bodies that haven't yet been sullied by age, by all the difficulties of adulthood. And why don't we have it anymore? Well, for that very reason. We don't have the visionary gleam, because the longer we live, the further we travel away from that origin. All right, that's clear enough. And so Wordsworth explores this idea until he gets to stanza 8. And at the very end of stanza 8, he says, full soon, talking to a child, full soon thy soul shall have her earthly freight, and custom lie upon thee with a weight, heavy as frost, deep almost as life. What's happened? In discussing the celestial qualities of childhood, and in discussing how we as adults move beyond this celestial quality to feel the doubts and confusions of adulthood, in describing that process, he says, strangely enough, children want to grow up as quickly as possible. What? So if the child has all this wisdom, why does it not want to stay in this wisdom, but on the contrary wants to live a life that is divorced from this wisdom, the life of an adult? So when Wordsworth calls the child the philosopher blessed, that statement feels more ironic, because the child is exactly not the philosopher blessed, because the child is not aware of the gifts that it possesses as a young child. So it's like Wordsworth invokes the myth and then explores the myth and then gets to a point where, oh, this myth is not taking me where I want to go. And now, where am I? I'm feeling the customs of life, the weight of habit and convention, and it's deep and burdensome. So where's he going to go? It's almost like he's reached whither is it gone, the visionary dream. Where's it gone, the visionary dream? Whither's it fled, the glory in the dream? I'm paraphrasing there. I'm not getting the quote exactly right. So then he makes a really bizarre move, in my opinion, and a brilliant move at the beginning of stanza 9, where he says, "Oh joy that our embers is something that doth live, that nature yet remembers that was so fugitive." So let's not worry about where this childhood celestiality comes from. Let's just say, let's be glad that at some point in our lives, a while back, we felt this fire, these embers. And he says, because of that, because when I was a child, I felt these embers, this fire, I'm going to bless this life. I'm going to choose to be happy about this life. But what am I going to bless? Not what's easiest to bless. I'm not going to bless delight and liberty in the simple creed of childhood. That would be easy. I'm going to bless the hard things in life. That's an odd move. It's basically as if he's saying, now as an adult, the parts of adulthood that have nothing to do with childhood, that's what I'm going to say yes to. He says, I'm going to bless the obstinate questionings of sense and outward things, fallings from us, vanishings, blank misgivings of a creature moving about in worlds not realized, high instincts before which our mortal nature doth tremble like a guilty thing surprised, before these first affections, those shadowy recollections, which, be they what they may, are yet the fountain light of all our day, are yet a master light of all our seeing. Major moment, where basically Wordsworth is suggesting that It is adulthood, not childhood, but adulthood that gives us the strength to think through the most difficult parts of life. Children can't do this. So, why would you bless doubts, confusions, fears? Well, it seems that to bless these things enables the poet to turn them into inspirations. This is a reason to write, not simply to praise childhood, but to try to grapple with the problems of adulthood. So, even though this poem is entitled Ode, Intimations of Immortality from Recollection of Early Childhood, Wordsworth gave it this title in 1815. It was initially called just Ode when he first published it in 1807. This ode is really, in a way, not a praise of childhood so much as a praise of what adults have that children don't have. And that is the ability, again, to think through these difficulties and write poems about them. So this poem sort of becomes, it's a journey. It's saying, oh, I want to embrace childhood. Well, I don't know if I can do that or not. Oh, yes, I can. Well, maybe I shouldn't. Oh, you know what? I'm not going to. So it has that movement of an ode where it moves back and forth between oppositions and ultimately tries to reconcile the two. So in this way, the Intimations Ode has the